All right, if there's any night we needed two legal analysts, this is the night. We're joined now by Michael Coyne, Dean at the Massachusetts School of Law, and local attorney Catherine Loftus, who you'll find on TikTok at Note My Objection.
All right, well, we heard it. We don't have to discuss just how horrendous some of the things that were said in those texts were. But up to this point, we're now in week 6. We have said Trooper Proctor's name has been out there this whole time, and I think you both were on the same page that the prosecution had to get ahead of it and call him to the stand despite the possibility that he was a liability. Feel the same way today?
Yeah, correct. I think the judge probably told them that if they didn't call him, she would give what's known as the missing witness instruction, meaning that you can assume that his testimony would be adverse to the Commonwealth. So with that in mind, they had no choice but to call him.
Wow.
You concur?
I do, and I think for a bit I was thinking about, well, maybe they'll let the defense call him and ask direct questions, but after hearing what came out today, what they would have done if he was on direct is just had him read the text. So what did you say next, and what was your response, which I think would have been worse. Ultimately, he had to be called. He's been talked about for weeks and weeks on end, and the Commonwealth, I do feel I have some sympathy for the prosecutor, because you get handed the case you get handed, and this is the lead investigator, and to have to put him on and to essentially get ahead of these texts that you know are going to come out through Cross is pretty tough.
And I wonder to what extent perhaps Trooper Proctor has contaminated other law enforcement officials. We know that his superiors were in this text exchange, and it doesn't seem as if they reprimanded him in any other way. I mean, does the jury now think about, well, we need to send a message here that this is not okay?
I'm not even sure they have to send a message. I think the testimony likely was fatal to the government's case, and especially, as you point out, that his supervisors were involved in this exchange, didn't reprimand him in any way, didn't even stop the conversation from continuing. The fact is, it does taint all of law enforcement in this case, and a lot of law enforcement hasn't covered themselves in glory already. So I'm afraid that this has put the Commonwealth in likely a very fatal position.
And Catherine, just one point for you, because the jury doesn't necessarily know that Proctor is under an internal investigation, which seems like the right proper step in order to figure out whether he should be reprimanded.
That's correct, and I thought it was interesting. So that was ruled upon pre-trial by the judge, that information wasn't going to come in. We don't know whether it's closed. We don't know whether it's ongoing. He did say that he was still working for the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office in the CPAC unit. So to me, that leads maybe to believe that the IA investigation is over. It was, I don't know what conclusion they could have come to based on this, but it's interesting if we'll ever hear about what the actual results of that investigation was.
Do you like the tactic of just going right after those texts to try to discredit him versus all the other things that have been alluded to that he engaged in? In other words, the defense's side is that he tampered with all the evidence. We haven't even touched that yet.
In only a half hour of cross-examination, what are we talking about tonight? The jury has tomorrow off. They have a day to let it sit and resonate with them. They don't come back till Wednesday. I think he hit the grand slam as he started out his cross-examination, and that was his intent. That type of language in a courtroom is always shocking. The fact that it would be the lead investigator using this type of language about the accused, her attorney, and all of this, I think is just horrific. And I feel for the O'Keefe family.
Yes, without a doubt. And just a reminder, in case you didn't see the trial today, those text exchanges, there was one with a group of his lifelong buddies, but the other text thread, as we said, were with, I believe, 5 other officers, 2 of whom were his superior.
That's right, yeah. And Catherine, I wonder if you're a defense attorney who has Trooper Proctor working on a case that your client is the subject of, what do you do with this information?
Well, it's interesting because he's actually one of the lead investigators on the Brian Walsh case, which will be coming up out of it's Cohasset. So it has much broader implications moving forward. Essentially, it taints him permanently.